Have you ever felt that invisible burdens weigh on your soul, preventing blessings from reaching you despite your constant prayers? Divine Mercy Sunday, celebrated on the first Sunday after Easter, isn't just another day on the liturgical calendar. It's a celestial portal of forgiveness, healing, and restoration, opened by Christ Himself for souls who truly trust in His infinite mercy. This special day, established through the revelations to Saint Faustina, becomes a unique opportunity when heaven touches earth in an extraordinary way, allowing graces to flow more abundantly than at any other time of the year. And Padre Pio understood this profound spiritual reality better than most. What if I told you that Padre Pio, with his extraordinary spiritual gifts and direct connection to the divine, revealed a secret reserved only for his closest spiritual children, a secret involving just 3 sacred words that, when pronounced with genuine faith on this special Sunday, could unlock extraordinary graces? These aren't just any words. According to Padre Pio, they activate a divine current of mercy that directly touches the deepest wounds of your soul and opens the way for spiritual, emotional, and even financial abundance. The humble stigmatic from Pietrelcina, discovered through his countless hours in prayer and through the supernatural experiences granted to him, that certain spiritual keys exist that can unlock heaven's storehouses. And he entrusted this particular key to only his most devoted followers. Before revealing this secret that has transformed thousands of lives, you need to understand something incredibly important about this teaching from Padre Pio. It's not about magical formulas or instant solutions, but about aligning your heart with God's merciful love. Padre Pio, who bore Christ's wounds for 50 years, knew intimately the power of divine mercy and how it operates in human lives. He witnessed countless miracles of healing, conversion, and restoration that followed when people opened themselves completely to God's mercy. And now, through this teaching that remained hidden for many years, you too have the opportunity to experience a profound transformation. This Divine Mercy Sunday, April 27th. A transformation that begins with just 3 words, but extends into every aspect of your life. The divine mercy that Padre Pio understood so deeply isn't simply God's forgiveness. It's His active love reaching into our broken humanity to restore what sin has damaged. This mercy is like an ocean without shores, waiting to flood into the smallest openings we create through our trust. Padre Pio would often tell his spiritual children, God's mercy is infinitely greater than our greatest sins. And he witnessed firsthand how souls transformed when they truly grasped this reality. In his 50 years bearing the stigmata, Padre Pio became a living channel of this mercy, spending up to 19 hours daily in the confessional, where thousands experienced God's healing touch through him, and where many first learned about the power of these 3 sacred words. What makes Divine Mercy Sunday so special, and why Padre Pio emphasized its importance, is that on this day, the floodgates of heaven open wider than at any other time. Based on Jesus' promises to Saint Faustina, souls who receive communion on this day, having confessed their sins, are granted complete forgiveness of sins and punishment. It's like a second baptism, a fresh start, a complete restoration of your spiritual state. Padre Pio understood that this extraordinary grace creates the perfect spiritual environment for other blessings to flow. When the soul is completely cleansed, it becomes a perfect vessel for God's abundant gifts. The 3 words he revealed are meant to be spoken precisely at this moment of spiritual openness, when your soul is most receptive to divine action. Imagine standing before an immense treasure vault, knowing that just 3 words could unlock it forever. This is the spiritual reality Padre Pio wanted his followers to understand about Divine Mercy Sunday. He saw in his mystical experiences how souls were transformed on this day, how long-standing spiritual blockages suddenly dissolved, how prayers that had seemed unanswered for years were suddenly fulfilled. On this day, he would say, heaven leans down so close to earth that even the faintest whisper of trust can reach God's heart. The 3 words he revealed aren't complicated theological concepts. They're simple words that any heart can understand and speak, yet they contain a power that can literally reorient your entire spiritual journey. The testimonies of those who have already experienced the power of Padre Pio's teaching about Divine Mercy Sunday are nothing short of extraordinary. Maria from Brazil had been struggling with a chronic illness for 15 years, visiting countless doctors without improvement, until she learned about these 3 words. After pronouncing them with faith last Divine Mercy Sunday, she experienced a gradual but steady improvement that left her doctors astounded. Carlos, a business owner facing bankruptcy after years of success, applied this teaching as a last resort before closing his company doors. Within 3 weeks, an unexpected opportunity arose that not only saved his business, but expanded it beyond what he had ever imagined. These aren't isolated cases. Thousands have reported similar transformations after applying Padre Pio's simple yet profound teaching. What makes these 3 words so powerful isn't their linguistic composition, but the spiritual attitude they represent and activate within your soul. Padre Pio often taught that our spiritual posture, how we position ourselves before God, determines our capacity to receive. These specific words, when spoken with sincerity and faith, create the perfect spiritual posture for receiving mercy and all its accompanying blessings. It's like adjusting an antenna to perfectly capture a broadcast signal. When these words align your heart with God's merciful love, the static disappears and clarity emerges. And the beauty of this teaching is its simplicity. You don't need theological education or years of spiritual training to implement it. You simply need a heart willing to trust and lips ready to pronounce these 3 transformative words. If you believe this teaching can change your life, as it has for so many devoted followers of Padre Pio, type in the comments, "I am ready for this blessing." Share this video with at least one person who needs divine mercy in their life right now, perhaps someone struggling with illness, financial difficulties, or emotional wounds. Remember that true spiritual gifts multiply when shared, not diminish. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more powerful spiritual teachings from saints like Padre Pio, who continue to guide us from heaven. The divine mercy that transformed countless lives through Padre Pio's ministry is still active today, and through these 3 words, you can tap into its life-changing power this coming Sunday. The first pillar of Padre Pio's teaching on divine mercy involves understanding that these 3 words must be spoken from a place of complete surrender. In his countless hours hearing confessions, Padre Pio observed that the greatest obstacle preventing divine graces from flowing into people's lives wasn't God's unwillingness to give, but rather their own spiritual resistance. He would often say, "Many pray for God's mercy, but then put up walls that prevent it from entering their lives." The first sacred word addresses this very issue. It's a word of total surrender that dismantles these walls. When pronounced with sincerity, it creates a spiritual vacuum that divine mercy rushes to fill, just as nature abhors a physical vacuum. Padre Pio taught that this first word is like opening the door to your spiritual house. Without opening it, even the most powerful blessings remain outside. This word of surrender requires more than just verbal pronunciation. It demands a corresponding interior attitude. Padre Pio would instruct his spiritual children to meditate on Christ's complete surrender on the cross before speaking this word. "Look at the crucifix," he would say, "and observe how Jesus holds nothing back. Every drop of blood, every breath, every moment of his suffering is given without reservation." This total giving becomes the model for how we should approach Divine Mercy Sunday. Not holding anything back, not keeping any corners of our hearts closed to God's healing touch. The power of this first word comes precisely from this alignment between what our lips pronounce and what our hearts truly mean. When there's harmony between the two, Padre Pio witnessed that extraordinary graces would begin flowing almost immediately. The transformative power of this first word can be seen in countless testimonies from Padre Pio's spiritual children. One woman, who had harbored resentment against her father for 30 years, found herself suddenly capable of forgiving him after pronouncing this word with sincere intent on Divine Mercy Sunday. A man who had struggled with addiction for decades experienced a sudden lessening of cravings that eventually led to complete freedom. These aren't coincidences. They're the natural results of removing the spiritual blockages that prevent divine mercy from doing its healing work. As Padre Pio would say, God's mercy is always present. Like sunlight outside your window, this word simply opens the shutters to let it flood your interior space. The second pillar of Padre Pio's Divine Mercy teaching centers on a word that activates trust, not an intellectual or theoretical trust, but a lived, experiential trust that becomes the channel through which extraordinary graces flow. Padre Pio often compared this kind of trust to a spiritual muscle that must be exercised to grow stronger. Many believe in God's mercy, he would say, but few truly trust it enough to base their lives upon it. This second sacred word is designed specifically to strengthen this spiritual muscle of trust. When spoken with conviction on Divine Mercy Sunday, it creates what Padre Pio described as a magnetic force that draws down specific graces needed in your particular life circumstances. Unlike generic prayers that ask for blessings in general terms, this word of trust establishes a direct connection to the exact graces your soul most needs at this moment. The profound wisdom behind this second word lies in its ability to bypass our analytical minds and speak directly from the heart. Padre Pio understood that many spiritual seekers become trapped in theological concepts and intellectual understanding, missing the simple childlike trust that Jesus emphasized as essential for entering the kingdom. This word cuts through those complications, allowing even those with little spiritual education to access profound graces. It's like the difference between studying the chemical composition of water and actually drinking when you're thirsty. One provides knowledge, but the other satisfies a vital need. When pronounced with sincerity on Divine Mercy Sunday, this word of trust provides spiritual hydration to souls that may have been parched for years, despite regular religious practice. This second word has proven especially powerful for those facing seemingly impossible situations. A mother whose child was diagnosed with an incurable condition pronounced this word of trust last Divine Mercy Sunday. 2 months later, medical tests showed inexplicable improvement that continues to this day. A family on the verge of losing their home due to financial hardship spoke this word together. Within days, an unexpected resolution to their situation emerged from a source they never anticipated. Padre Pio explained this phenomenon by saying, "When you truly trust God's mercy, you give him the freedom to work in ways that human reasoning cannot comprehend or predict. This word creates that sacred space where divine logic can operate beyond human limitations, opening pathways that our limited minds could never conceive." The third and final word in Padre Pio's Divine Mercy teaching deals with receptivity, the spiritual capacity to actually receive and integrate the graces being offered. Through his extraordinary gift of reading souls, Padre Pio observed a paradoxical reality. Many people pray fervently for divine help, but lack the interior receptivity necessary to recognize and accept it when it arrives. This third sacred word creates what he called a spiritual womb, a sacred interior space where divine gifts can be received, nurtured, and brought to full manifestation in your life. Without this receptivity, graces may be granted but remain ineffective, like seeds falling on unprepared soil. Padre Pio would often say, "Heaven's generosity is unlimited, but our capacity to receive must be developed through spiritual practice." This word of receptivity operates on multiple dimensions simultaneously: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. When pronounced with awareness on Divine Mercy Sunday, it creates an alignment between these different aspects of your being, removing contradictions and resistances that might block the full reception of grace. Padre Pio compared this process to tuning a complex musical instrument. When all strings are properly adjusted, divine harmony can express itself through you. The beauty of this third word is that it doesn't require perfect spiritual development or moral perfection to be effective. It simply requires honest intention and openness. Even those taking their first steps on the spiritual path can experience profound results when they pronounce this word with sincere desire for transformation. The cases that most moved Padre Pio were those involving long-term spiritual dryness, people who had practiced their faith faithfully for years, but felt disconnected from any sense of God's presence or action in their lives. One priest who had served for 25 years while battling interior emptiness finally experienced a profound renewal after learning and applying this third word on Divine Mercy Sunday. A religious sister who had kept her vows faithfully, despite feeling spiritually abandoned for decades, suddenly rediscovered the joy and intimacy with Christ that had initially drawn her to religious life. As Padre Pio explained, this word has the power to clear away the dust that settles on the soul through years of routine practice, revealing once again the brilliant light that has always been present but obscured. When these three sacred words are combined and pronounced with faith on Divine Mercy Sunday, they create what Padre Pio described as a spiritual trinity, a threefold key that unlocks heaven's storehouses in a unique and powerful way. The effectiveness of these words doesn't come from their phonetic sound or grammatical structure, but from the spiritual realities they activate within your soul and in the spiritual realm. Padre Pio, with his mystical vision, would sometimes see luminous pathways forming between earth and heaven when these words were pronounced with genuine faith, channels through which specific graces could descend directly to the person praying. This explains why the same words might bring physical healing to one person, financial breakthrough to another, and emotional restoration to a third. The words create the opening, but the specific grace that flows is precisely what each individual soul most needs. The exact timing for pronouncing these three words is also significant. Padre Pio recommended speaking them immediately after receiving Holy Communion on Divine Mercy Sunday, when Christ's real presence within you creates the optimal spiritual environment for their effectiveness. If attending Mass isn't possible, he suggested pronouncing them at 3 p.m., the hour of mercy, while holding a blessed object, ideally a rosary blessed by a priest, or, if available, a relic or image of divine mercy. The physical posture he recommended was kneeling if possible, with hands open on your lap in a gesture of receptivity. These details aren't rigid requirements. Padre Pio understood that circumstances vary and God looks at the heart above all, but they create ideal conditions for the words to achieve their maximum impact, much like proper soil preparation helps seeds flourish. While preparing to pronounce these three words, Padre Pio suggested a simple but powerful interior preparation. Spend a few moments consciously identifying what specific area of your life most needs divine mercy right now. Is it a physical illness that conventional medicine hasn't resolved? A financial situation that seems mathematically impossible? A relationship that appears beyond repair? A spiritual wound that hasn't healed despite years of prayer? By identifying this specific need without limiting God's response, you create what Padre Pio called a landing pad for divine mercy, a clearly marked space where grace can touch down in your life. This focused intention doesn't constrain God's freedom to act as he wishes, but rather demonstrates your awareness of where you most need his merciful intervention. The testimonies of those who have applied Padre Pio's teaching reveal certain patterns in how divine mercy typically manifests after pronouncing these three words. Rather than instantaneous dramatic changes, most people report what Padre Pio called mercy in motion, a gradual but steady improvement that begins subtly but gains momentum over time. A woman who had suffered from debilitating anxiety for 15 years noticed a slight but definite sense of calm beginning the very evening of Divine Mercy Sunday. Within 3 months, her symptoms had diminished by approximately 70%, allowing her to reduce medication under medical supervision. This pattern reflects Padre Pio's teaching that divine mercy typically works like a sunrise rather than a lightning bolt, gradually illuminating our darkness until full daylight is established in our souls. Another common pattern involves the appearance of unexpected human helpers or resources that serve as instruments of divine mercy. A family that pronounced these three words, last Divine Mercy Sunday, while facing eviction, was approached the following week by a distant relative who felt inexplicably compelled to offer them temporary housing, a solution they had never considered that ultimately led to a complete resolution of their housing crisis. Padre Pio often emphasized that God's mercy frequently comes wearing human faces, working through people who may not even understand why they feel drawn to help you. This doesn't diminish the supernatural nature of the intervention. Rather, it demonstrates how divine mercy seamlessly integrates with natural processes, bringing solutions that are both miraculous in origin and practical in application. Perhaps the most profound pattern observed is what Padre Pio called the multiplication effect of mercy, how an initial grace received through these 3 words often generates multiple additional blessings that weren't specifically requested. A man who primarily sought emotional healing from past trauma found that as his inner wounds began healing, his professional life unexpectedly flourished, and long-standing family conflicts began resolving without direct intervention. This phenomenon reflects the interconnected nature of our lives and the comprehensive action of divine mercy, which addresses not just isolated problems, but entire life systems. As Padre Pio explained, true mercy doesn't just fix what's broken, it restores the original divine plan for your life, which always includes abundance in multiple dimensions. The moment has now come to reveal the 3 sacred words that Padre Pio taught would unlock divine mercy when pronounced with faith on this special Sunday. These words, in their beautiful simplicity, are: Jesus, I trust. These 3 words contain within them the essence of divine mercy spirituality: complete surrender to Christ's loving providence, absolute trust in His goodness, regardless of circumstances, and total receptivity to His healing action in your life. Though they may appear simple on the surface, Padre Pio witnessed their extraordinary power when spoken from the heart. Each word serves a specific spiritual purpose. Jesus establishes personal connection with the source of mercy. I makes an individual commitment that no one else can make for you. And trust activates the spiritual disposition that allows mercy to flow without obstruction. The power of these words lies not in their linguistic formulation, but in the spiritual doorway they open when pronounced with sincere faith. Padre Pio compared them to the coordinates entered into a navigation system. They establish your spiritual position and direct divine mercy precisely where it needs to go in your life. The challenging part isn't pronouncing the words themselves, but truly meaning them, allowing Jesus, I trust, to penetrate every corner of your being, especially those areas where trust has been damaged by disappointment, suffering, or unanswered prayers. This is why Padre Pio recommended preparing for divine mercy Sunday through the novena that begins on Good Friday, gradually deepening your capacity for trust so that when you pronounce these words on the feast itself, they represent your authentic spiritual stance rather than merely wishful thinking. Don't wait for perfect circumstances or complete understanding before applying this teaching. Divine Mercy Sunday arrives this April 27th, offering a unique opportunity that won't return for another year. As Padre Pio often told his spiritual children, the decision to trust God's mercy is itself an act of mercy toward yourself. By pronouncing Jesus, I trust, with sincere faith this coming Sunday, ideally after receiving Holy Communion or at 3 p.m., you open yourself to the extraordinary graces that Christ promised through Saint Faustina and that Padre Pio witnessed transforming countless lives. Remember that divine mercy doesn't demand perfection as a prerequisite. Its very nature is to meet us in our imperfection and gradually transform us through love. The extraordinary ocean of mercy awaits. With 3 simple words, you can open your heart to its transformative power and begin experiencing the abundance that God has intended for you all along.